What up, guys, and welcome back to Thomas Reacts here on the 360 experience with myself, Thomas Mabaso. For the longest time, people have been asking themselves, why would the Democratic Alliance declare the EFF as enemy number one? I mean, like, guys, to many people, this thing, it's making no sense. Why would the Democratic Alliance focus on the EFF and not focus on the African National Congress? So why do you think that the Democratic Alliance has decided that the economic freedom fighters are their enemy number one? And if you are the member of the Democratic Alliance, do you think that it is wise for the DA to focus on the EFF and make the EFF enemy number one, not the African National Congress? What is the purpose of the Democratic Alliance actually declaring the EFF as their enemy number one and not the African National Congress? Guys, what are your thoughts on this whole thing? So do you think that it is okay, or do you think that it is wise for the Democratic Alliance to focus on the economic freedom fighters and not the African National Congress? You know, the party that is running the place, the party that is making sure that everything is crumbling right now in South Africa. So what are your thoughts on this whole thing? Do you think that it is wise for the Democratic Alliance to focus on the EFF? And do you have reasons why do you believe that it is wise for the Democratic Alliance to focus on the economic freedom fighters and declare them as their enemy number one? And if you also, guys, you don't believe that it is okay for the Democratic Alliance to declare the EFF as enemy number one, you are welcome to tell us why do you think it is not a wise idea for the Democratic Alliance to declare the EFF as their enemy number one and not the African National Congress, the party that is actually running everything right now in the country. You know, people have said that the Democratic Alliance declaring the EFF number one, it only shows you that the Democratic Alliance wants to govern the country with the ANC. That's what people are saying, man. So what are your thoughts on that? So today I have this video that I want to share with you. This video, I think it took place a year back, where Helen Zille was giving this presentation during the Business News conference. And on this conference, Helen Zille is going to make it clear to people why the Democratic Alliance has decided to focus on the EFF and not the African National Congress, and why Helen Zille thinks that 2024 it is going to be the battle for the soul of South Africa.
I've been talking about the realignment of politics. The realignment of politics. Now, what did I mean by that? Many people thought what I meant by that was getting all the opposition parties together to fight the ANC. That is not what I meant by that. Having come from a background in the struggle and been working with many very good people in that struggle in the ANC, but realizing the forces in that party made it impossible that it could lead the charge to democracy, what I meant was facing the fact that the boundaries of political parties already in the mid-2000s had become obsolete, and that we needed a whole realignment to bring together those who believed in constitutionalism and the rule of law, non-racialism, a market-driven economy, and a separation between the party and the state. Those four critical things without which no constitutional democracy can ever work in South Africa, let alone achieve prosperity. So I did as much as I could, and when the EFF came onto the scene, I thought, aha, this is a critically important moment for the realignment of politics in South Africa. And this is where I'm going to draw you a picture, and I hope you can all see what I'm going to draw. It's going to be up on the screen.
So, and guys, do you think that the Democratic Alliance is actually scared of the EFF? Because that's what people have been saying, that the Democratic Alliance is only focusing on the EFF because they are scared of the economic freedom fighters. Do you think that it is true that the Democratic Alliance is scared of the EFF? Do you think that the Democratic Alliance is mad with the EFF for actually disturbing their grand plan of overthrowing the ANC? Because if you remember, for some time, people in South Africa actually thought about the Democratic Alliance as the alternative of the African National Congress. But ever since the inception of the economic freedom fighters, people are now looking at the EFF and no longer looking at the Democratic Alliance. So people are split right now. People who no longer want to vote for the ANC are now looking at the EFF, because the policies of the EFF are more similar with the ANC. So they believe that the EFF can execute those policies that the ANC failed to execute. So do you think that this whole thing of the EFF focusing on the the DA focusing on the EFF, it has something to do with the fact that the DA is actually scared of the economic freedom fighters, because that's what people have been saying. That the DA, it seems like they are scared of the EFF. They are scared that the EFF is going to do a real damage to them comes 2024. So they have to focus on them, and they have to discredit them instead of discrediting the party that is actually running the place. The party that is making sure that every road in South Africa right now, it has a pothole. It's the party that is making sure that people are paying more for electricity, but they don't get any electricity. So what are your thoughts on this whole debate, guys?
I arranged this with Biz News. Nothing's too much for them. They said they would actually do it on the screen. It might be too much for me to draw a triangle, but there it is. Thanks. That is the triangle that I drew at the time. And I said, everybody, this is our moment, and we have to understand the moment, and we have to understand how the forces of politics are shaping South Africa. And so I'll put the EFF in this corner, because in the first election that they fought in 2014, they got 6%. And that's the EFF. You can see it's red. There I have the DA. Back then, 22%. Pretty much what we got now.
But not why 20, man. No, put 20.
Get a bit bigger for obvious reasons. But in this little corner are a whole lot of smaller parties, the Freedom Front Plus, the UDM, the ACDP and Carter Freedom Party, now also Herman Mashaba, in that corner that I think mostly incline more to us. And I said, now we have a clear contest in South Africa. The DA versus the EFF. That is the fight for South Africa's soul.
So it's not the DA against the ANC, or it is not the EFF against the ANC. It's the DA against the EFF. How?
That is the battle for the future. Here is the ANC. The ANC is this huge mass in the middle. But even in the 1980s, and certainly in the 2000s, or the noughties as they call them, and even now, most especially now, no one can tell you what the ANC stands for. The DA stands for constitutionalism, the rule of law, accountability, non-racialism, which has become a swear word in the new South Africa today, and a range of other things, the market economy, the separation of party and state, all the factors that make for a successful constitutional democracy. The EFF stands for the dead opposite. They stand for a system in which the leader controls the party, and the party controls the state, and the state controls the economy. The recipe for totalitarianism. That is where they stand. And that is the choice, real choice facing South Africa. And the critical thing that has to happen in politics is that this huge dominant mass, the single party dominant mass, has to come apart so that people can go where they need to go in terms of the principles and values they stand for, so that the contestation for South Africa's future can become clear and can become real in people's minds. And I said, we now have to go to be a party of government so that we can live out those values, demonstrate those values in action, and show that they work better than this or the inchoate mass that is that. And so we won Cape Town, well, back in 2006 on a 7-party coalition. We won it in Western Cape in 2009 with an overall majority. And today we govern 35 municipalities in 7 provinces. And the choice is between that and that. And as Cyril Ramaphosa said in his State of the Nation address, he said, there is a battle on for the soul of South Africa. And what he meant was this battle. And what he didn't say, but what he knows is fundamentally true, is that that battle is raging within the ANC, and that he is, with a few other people, virtually alone in trying to push things in a direction of constitutionalism and the rule of law. And there was a crucial moment in that State of the Nation address where he looked up at our young mayor, 35-year-old Jordan Hill-Lewis, sitting up there in the mayor's box in our city hall, that pristine city hall. You can't go to another city centre in the whole of South Africa and find a city hall in such perfect condition, absolutely perfect condition, beautifully resplendent in the colours of the flag. And he looked up and he said, "Thank you, Mayor, for making this possible." Because Parliament had burnt down, and just as when Parliament was burning down in January, Cyril Ramaphosa stood in front of it and said, "At least one city in South Africa works." And that is the consequence of that value set planted in government and entrenched election after election. Fire service is there before the fire alarm even goes off. And all of the litany of ghastly political failures and administrative failures and management failures that the report on that fire unearthed. And so Cyril Ramaphosa looks to the young mayor and says, "Thank you very much for making it possible that we could do that."
Well, according to me, guys, I could be wrong. I stand to be corrected on this. But when I listen to Helen Zille, I think Helen Zille is trying to say that the ANC basically stands for nothing. The ANC stands for nothing. The ANC will go into coalition with any party that is going to guarantee that the African National Congress is going to stay in power. So the fight is between the Democratic Alliance and the EFF, because the party that does better between the Democratic Alliance and the EFF, it has more chances of going into coalition with the ANC. So this is actually about governing the country. It has nothing to do with providing the services for people or anything of that sort. It has everything to do with power, because they are saying that the party that is going to do good between the party that is going to do better between the DA and the EFF, it is the party that has more chances of going into coalition with the African National Congress, because the African National Congress stands for nothing. It will go into coalition with the DA, and they don't even mind going into coalition with the EFF. So the fight is between the DA and the EFF. I think that's what Helen Zille is trying to say. So for some reason, I think it makes sense, man. I know that I've criticized the DA a bit on this, but I think it makes sense right now. Because if the DA falls, maybe just think the DA right now is on 20. If the DA goes to 15 and maybe the EFF maybe does something like 18. Guys, I'm just throwing out wild numbers. These numbers are chances are they're not going to happen. But if the DA goes to 15 and the EFF maybe goes to 18, chances are the ANC will go into coalition with the EFF. And if the DA does better than the EFF, chances are the ANC will go into coalition with the DA. So Helen Zille is basically telling us that the ANC stands for nothing. There's no need for us to focus on the ANC. We have to focus on the EFF. We have to make sure that people are not voting for the EFF. People are voting for the DA, because the ANC has a base. The ANC, they will always have those people who will go out and vote for the African National Congress. We know that it is a fact. Most of people who are going to vote in 2024 are going to vote for the African National Congress. But we have to see who is going to go into coalition with the African National Congress. And this battle is between the DA and the EFF. So I think that's what Helen Zille is talking about. So I know, man, I've been criticizing this whole thing of... I'm such a hypocrite, man. I know that I've been criticizing this whole thing of the DA focusing on the economic freedom fighters. But I think right now it makes sense. It makes perfect sense why the DA is focusing on the economic freedom fighters. It makes perfect sense, because the economic freedom fighters is the only party that actually threatened the DA into going into coalition with the African National Congress. They know that there are chances that the African National Congress will go into coalition with the EFF if the EFF does better than the DA. They know that. They know that the ANC will go into coalition with anyone just to stay in power. That's what the African National Congress is going to do. That's why when she started this whole presentation, she said that the ANC, no one knows what the ANC stands for. Basically means that the ANC stands for nothing. No one knows what the ANC stands for, because the African National Congress stands for nothing. But right now we have these two parties who are presenting two different policies Guys, we have to understand the policies of the DA and the policies of the EFF are day and night. So that's why this battle is so important for the Democratic Alliance, man. I think to me, for right now, it makes perfect sense. Guys, I know I'm a hypocrite. I don't care. I know that I'm a hypocrite. It's fine. But I think for right now, it makes sense because for the longest time, it never made sense to me. Why would the Democratic Alliance choose the EFF as their enemy number one? But when you look at it this way, it makes sense because the party that is going to do good between the Democratic Alliance and the EFF is the party that has more chances of going into coalition with the African National Congress, because the African National Congress, like, they basically stands for nothing. The African National Congress stands for nothing. So to me, it makes sense, guys. I don't know about you. That's why I say that I stand to be corrected. You are okay. You are welcome to say that, Thomas, right now you are talking nonsense. Thomas, I'm not agreeing with you on this point. It's fine. This is why we are here, so that we can try to make each other see the right things. But to me, I think it makes sense why the DA has decided to focus on the economic freedom fighters, because they know right now it's the battle of ideologies. It is the battle of the ideologies, and right now the ANC presents no ideology. You have to understand that every policy that the EFF is presenting right now are the policies that the African National Congress has promised but failed to deliver. The EFF is doing nothing new. There is nothing new that the EFF is coming with. The EFF is coming with the same policies of the African National Congress. The EFF is saying, guys, these guys have failed to deliver on land. These guys have failed to nationalize the land, to nationalize the mines, and to nationalize the Reserve Bank. These guys have failed. But us, as the economic freedom fighters, we are going to make sure that these policies are implemented. So, all the policies that the EFF is coming with, these are the policies that the ANC has been running with for the longest time. But most of these policies, the ANC has failed to implement. This is why the EFF is coming with the same policies and saying, guys, we know that the ANC has been talking about land. We know that the ANC has been talking about nationalizing the Reserve Bank and the mines. But these guys have failed to nationalize the land. They have failed to nationalize the mines. They have failed to nationalize the Reserve Bank. So we are going to implement those policies. You have to understand. So these policies are different from the DA. Because the DA, they don't want any nationalization of the mines. They don't want any nationalization of the land. They don't want any nationalization of the Reserve Bank. You have to understand, these policies are day and night. What EFF and the DA are presenting are day and night. And the ANC is standing, the ANC is just sitting there, waiting to see who's going to do better between the DA and the EFF. And the party that is going to do better between the EFF and the DA is the party that the ANC most likely will pick to go into coalition with in 2024. I think, to me, right now, it makes sense.
And what he's basically saying is, and this is the truth, I am trapped in my own party. I am trapped in my own party. I can't move, because the entire ANC is an interlocking network of criminal syndicates. Many, many years ago, and I'm not exaggerating, that's not hyperbole, that is true. Many years ago, Kgalema Motlanthe, then Deputy President, said, every single tender issued by the state has been designed and issued to make somebody in the ANC rich. And the contestation around access to those tenders and contracts is the war that results in all the political assassinations we're seeing and that now hardly even make the news, for example, in Mpumalanga and other places. So that is the major contestation, and that is the major battle. I'll take 1 minute to say that I took the DA as far as I thought I could take it in 2014, when this outcome happened. And I thought the next step to move this line, because that must be our goal, to move this line to there, and to get all of the people who share that value set into the same party. Because remember, our political boundaries of our parties are obsolete.
And talking about the DA leadership, man, do you think that John Steenhuisen is the right person to take the DA into victory, man? Do you think that the DA has made a wise choice about electing John Steenhuisen as the leader of the party, man? Do you think that John Steenhuisen actually has what it takes to take the DA into victory, man? Because I've heard people saying that John Steenhuisen is going to do worse than Musa Maimane. You know that Musimemani, the DA called him a failed experiment, and Musimemani never healed from that. Man, Musimemani has been doing so many interviews, and he never healed from the fact that the DA has called him a failed experiment. I'm sure right now he's hoping that John Steenhuisen does bad, so that he can be like, oh, what are you going to say right now? Now that your white boy has done much worse than I did. Musimemani is waiting for John Steenhuisen to get less than 20. If John Steenhuisen does less than 20, man, I saw Musimemani is going to be the happiest man in the world. But like I said before, if John Steenhuisen does better than 20, Musimemani, they are going to use you as a template. You are going to be an example of the DA. Man, they are going to do the seminars on you. They're going to say, don't do it. They're going to look at your tenure there when you were the leader of the Democratic Alliance and say, these are the things not to do when you are the leader of the Democratic Alliance, because you are going to get less than 22. You're going to stand at 20. Man, they are going to turn you into a template. You better hope that John Steenhuisen does bad. I'm telling you, man, you better hope that John Steenhuisen does bad, because if John Steenhuisen does better than you, the DA is going to turn you into a template. I'm telling you, Musimemani. They're about to do seminars with my boy, man. They're about to do seminars with my boy, telling the people these are the things not to do, man. As the Democratic Alliance, we've once made the worst mistake of our party's existence by electing Musimemani as the leader of the party. Because under Musimemani, the DA went to 20, man. It was on 22. It went to 20. And we elected John Steenhuisen. And right now, the DA is on 30. Man, you better hope that John Steenhuisen does bad, man. And I'm sure that is what the Musimemani is hoping for. He's hoping that John Steenhuisen does bad, because he's been heard about the fact that the Democratic Alliance has called him a failed experiment.
There are constitutionalists and people who believe in that value set in this party, and there are people who believe in that value set in this party. And that has to all come apart so that this contestation can be seen for what it is. And I left the DA with this analysis firmly in place, and I thought, great, we're going to take it forward. And in 2016, we had that breakthrough election where we broke out of the Western Cape and into the metros in the rest of South Africa. And the tragedy of that was that instead of taking the one metro that we could get a clear coalition majority with people who shared our values, we were so determined, or certainly not me, I had a huge fight about it in the party, but there were people in Gauteng who said, we can only do it, we can only take out the ANC if we work with the EFF. And instead of having that contestation, what did we do? We went with the EFF to govern Johannesburg and to govern Tshwane. Fatal, fatal strategic mistake. And when you make strategic mistakes in politics, they come back to bite you big time. And so instead of doing what we were going to do to the ANC, eat them away on this side and have the EFF eat them away on that side, what happened to us was Cyril started eating away at the DA on this side, and the right wing started eating away at the DA on that side.
And guys, do you think that there's a chance of the Democratic Alliance going into coalition with the EFF in 2024? Do you think there's a chance of Democratic Alliance going into coalition with the EFF in 2024? I know it's wild, man. I know it's wild. But is there any chance of the Democratic Alliance going into coalition with the EFF into 2024?
Fatal mistake, undermined the entire long-term strategy that I've spent so much time doing. I had to decide, do I try and get the DA on the right path again, or do I just say, I've had my turn, goodbye? And I suppose a little bit like Kim van Ketz, I said to my husband, listen, shall I take on this battle again? And he said, are you mad? And then the next morning he said, well, I know you. I think you better do that, otherwise you will never forgive yourself. You must at least try and give it another chance. And so, of course, when I did come back and won that election internally for the chair of the Federal Council in 2019, all the people who wanted this alignment left. Nobody analyzed it properly. They wanted to leave. Herman Mashaba still today believes that we have to work with the EFF in order to beat the ANC. That is the core ideological difference that we have. I believe that we have to work with this section, and we're working with them behind the scenes all the time, to achieve a new majority that will be based on the values of constitutionalism, the rule of law, and non-racialism, all the things I've been speaking about, and that this grouping must be there. So that is the ideological difference. And this is where South Africa can be quo vadis. If we get our analysis right, if we get our moves right, and then when those catalytic moments come in politics that can never be predicted, like that uprising in KwaZulu-Natal last year, we use that very much to drive this line of politics here and to make common cause with the constitutionalists and build a new majority. That is why of the State of the Nation address, when Cyril Ramaphosa came along and said, I pin my colors to the flag of reform, fundamental reform, the most important sentence in that speech. There's a battle for the soul of South Africa. Number one, absolutely right, that is what that battle is. Number two, business creates jobs and not government. In that way, he was declaring war on this group. And you remember how they heckled him in that speech. So the realignment is happening, and there are many, many scenarios that are being done at the moment. This is a document of Yaki Salira and the Institute of Strategic Studies. People do scenarios all the time. What are the possible futures for South Africa? I'm not going to go through them now because the clock is ticking. But the most likely one, he says too, is one called Bafana Bafana. I won't explain to you what that means. It means trotting along in the third league, which we don't want to do. But the critical thing about this last election was that the ANC fell under 50%, a huge watershed. And the ANC, another premise of mine, cannot fix itself. It is too trapped in corruption, too compromised, and everybody has something on somebody else, and that factionalism and corruption absolutely permeates the South African police force that is almost a wholly owned subsidiary of criminal syndicates in South Africa. And again, I'm not exaggerating. That is not a political exaggeration. That is the truth. And so the best case outcome for bending the arc on the Bafana Bafana model is for the DA to do as well as we can in the 2024 election. Because as the ANC falls below 50%, it is going to look around for coalition partners. It's going to have to. And the stronger we are, the more comfort we give to the constitutionalists in the ANC. It's absurd to argue, as Peter Bruce did, that if you vote for the ANC, you're supporting Cyril Ramaphosa. You're supporting the total inchoate mass of corruption, because no one knows which individual in the ANC you voted for. The best way to save the constitutionalists in the ANC...
But it's funny because they criticize the ANC, but they want to go into coalition with the ANC. Because I think the DA, the executives there, the DA, they are not stupid. They know that the DA is not going to win the outright majority in 2024. So they are hoping that the DA is going to go into coalition with the African National Congress. So it makes no sense for her to criticize the ANC, whereas they still want to go into coalition with the ANC. They know that the ANC is going to get majority of the votes in 2024. I've said this many times that South Africans who care to vote most of them are going to vote for the African National Congress, despite load shedding, despite the lack of service delivery. I told you that load shedding and service delivery are not going to be any factors into 2024. So Helen Zille, as much as she can criticize the ANC, the fact is that the Democratic Alliance still want to go into coalition with the African National Congress to run the country into 2024. That's what they want. They don't care about the fact that the ANC is a corrupt criminal syndicate. They don't care about that. They don't care about that. Because they want to go into coalition with the African National Congress. That's what they want. The EFF, they want the same thing. So the ANC is going to sit back and watch the EFF and the DA battle to go into coalition with them. They won't have to go to the ANC, to the DA or to the EFF. The DA and the EFF are going to come to the ANC. The DA and the EFF are going to come to the ANC to go into coalition with the ANC. So it's going to be very interesting to see how 2024 is going to pan out, man. It's going to be very interesting.
ANC is to get the party that stands foursquare behind those values elected. So that when the ANC falls below 50%, as it does, the bulk of the critical mass that provides a safe alternative is the one that stands for our values. And that is what we have to get right. Now, the last thing I want to say in the 2 minutes I have left is this. Cyril Ramaphosa is likely to be re-elected at the end of the year at the ANC's conference.
Facts.
What happens at their policy congress, I don't know, in June. We'll have to see where the balance of forces lies, but I think it probably will lie more on this side of the triangle. However, Cyril will be elected, but the person to watch is who is elected as his deputy. That is the critical contest in this end of the year ANC conference. If it's Mabuza, we've got a lot to worry about. The deputy usually becomes the president, and Mabuza spends most of his time in Russia, and it's not because he's sick. It's because he knows that that is where the money comes from to fund the entire corrupt network, to buy all the votes that they do in ANC congresses. They raise hundreds of millions, and that money is used to pay for votes. And in the last election, Mpumalanga had the biggest delegation, and Mabuza made a calculation. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is not going to cut it. Cyril has a better chance of becoming president. I then have a better chance of becoming president after him if I pin my colors to his mast, and he took that entire Mpumalanga delegation, all paid for, behind Cyril. But he's not supporting Cyril. He's corrupt, totally corrupt, and he belongs ideologically there. But he says going in that slipstream is much more strategic to make himself the president. Other options are Ronald Lamola, talk a little bit about this when my time runs out, Paul Mashatile, Thandi Modise, various others, not Lindiwe Sisulu. She hasn't got enough heft in the ANC itself. So that is where South Africa can quo vadis. We can build a new majority around the values of the Constitution. It is going to be like rowing single-handedly across the Atlantic, but at least we've got a team and we can do it. That is the pathway. That is how we have to achieve it. And we have to pull those levers as much as we can. And my job is to try and make sure that enough voters get it so that they do the right thing. Thank you very much.
What are your thoughts, man? What are your thoughts, guys? Please tell me what you think in the comment section. Do you think that Helen Zille, man? Because, like I said, that at first, I didn't understand why the Democratic Alliance has decided that the EFF are their enemy number one. But after Helen Zille broke it down, I finally understand that, okay, this is the battle between who is going to go into coalition with the African National Congress. So basically, the DA and the EFF are fighting to go into coalition with the African National Congress. Whoever does good between the DA and the EFF in 2024 is most likely to go into coalition with the African National Congress to run South Africa. So that is where the battle is. That's how I understand it. That is where the battle is. So guys, what are your thoughts? Guys, please tell me what are your thoughts on the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button, and the most important part, don't forget to subscribe. My name is Thomas Mabaso, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.